Hey guys, welcome to this new video. In today's video, I have my buddy Vinh Ho on the channel to discuss about his relocation from Vietnam to the US, if he had any reverse cultural shock because he's been living in Vietnam for more than 5 years, and his thoughts about getting back to the US, his perspective, pros and cons, Vietnam versus the US. Hi, Vin. I'm very happy to have you today to discuss about that. How are you going so far?
Oh, hi, Guillaume. It's a pleasure to meet up with you again. Thank you. I'm doing well.
So, Vin, can you give us some background about your life in Vietnam over the last 5 years?
Sure. So in 2017, I decided to move from America. I was living in Minnesota, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I started in August 1st, moved to Chiang Mai, Thailand for 6 months. And of course, I had done a lot of research on the digital nomad trend and living overseas and making money online, e-commerce and things like that. So I kind of followed that group and crowd and ended up in Chiang Mai. Great place to meet other like-minded people. And then I always had a long-term vision to live in Vietnam. So then by 2018, I moved to Da Nang, Vietnam, which is a beach city, I guess, medium size, and lived there 1 year. And then 2019, I moved to Saigon. And then I just left about 2 months ago, and I landed back in Florida in the United States. So about 5 years total in Asia.
Very good, Vin. So actually, we made a couple of videos together. So I invite the audience to check them out. I will leave all the links below in the description. Vin, in today's video, I would like to focus more about your current life and what has been your thoughts 5 years ago when you left the US. You had some reasons to leave the US, and now getting back, maybe there are some differences, and I can even quote like cultural shock that you observe. Can you share them?
Sure. Honestly, the cultural shock coming back to the United States hasn't been that bad. Where I'm in right now in Florida, things have not changed at all. Infrastructure, the design, the neighborhoods, all are the same as I remember 5, 10, 12 years ago. So going to the supermarket, going to Costco, Walmart, Target is very normal to me. And I don't think I've experienced much culture shock at all. I think the only difference is it seems like in the news in 2023 in America, there's been a lot of shootings. Random people are getting shot, whether it be at the bank, at a school. So it just seems like gun violence in America has taken off. So that's the only shock to me, honestly. But everything else, getting my driver's license or doing my paperwork or other things like that, getting the phone set up, it's taken much longer back in Asia, but that's the only differences I see.
It's true, Vin, that because you live in Vietnam for so long, for 5 years, here in this bustling city like Ho Chi Minh City, things were evolving very fast. You could leave the country for 2 to 3 weeks, and then when you come back, you see a new restaurant, a new coffee shop, a building has been destroyed, and then they are starting to build a new tower. So coming back to the US, maybe you see that in other parts of the world, in more developed countries, finally you have more a slow pace and a slow growth. Vin, is there any things related maybe to the mindset of people that you observe in the US compared to Vietnam?
Pretty much the same as I had left 5 years ago. Americans are very, very open, very kind, courteous. I guess there's differences in that way. Americans are more private. They're courteous in terms of when they see you, they might nod your head or say hello, but you might not get to know them so much so quickly unless you're doing business or you know them through an acquaintance. But generally speaking, I think Americans are friendly, our neighbors, we get along with them. They say hello, things like that. But it's pretty much as it's always been. America's been inward looking because it's such a big marketplace, it's such a big country. And so Americans just know just America. So they don't think outside the borders. They don't know so much was happening around the world, much less Canada or Mexico, our neighbors. So if you mention Vietnam or Asia, it doesn't really register in Americans' mind. They don't know so much about that part of the world.
I guess when I went to the US, sometime I was mentioning my small town in south of France, and most of the Americans didn't really know. And then when you tell them it's close to Spain, you feel that they can identify where is it on the map, but not that deep, right? Vin, what about the opportunity side? You've been out of the US for so long, and now you come back. Do you have a perspective that you have more chance to win, more chance to launch a success because maybe you saw things in China, in Vietnam, in Asia in general, and now you come back with a fresh mind? Do you think it can help you to learn something and have an advantage over other US people?
Yes, I definitely think that living abroad, experiencing, traveling, living overseas is very advantageous. And after coming back to America, I realized that America is the biggest market. There's so much opportunity here. So whether it be, you could start off small in your state or your region, your area, but if you expand nationwide, the sky's the limit in business. So I start to see that now. There's a lot of services that could be provided for businesses, importing product, selling product, e-commerce, things like that. So living abroad in Vietnam and now coming back to America and then realizing that I do live in such a huge marketplace and so much opportunity. So if you're here for business, America is a great place to be for that.
In America, it's very easy to set up a company, and then you have this huge demand of consumer needs, right? Because you came here in Asia for so long, you could identify some products that you can import there. What would be basically the different types of either services or products that you think are opportunities for someone who has been living overseas and then come back to the US, Vin?
I think if you're talking about importing products, it really depends on the niche and then the local market, and then there's a demand. So if you're selling, whether it be patio furniture, or anything like that, and if you can get it at a low cost and if you can sell into a retail place or a place that's already buying that type of product, would be, easy thing to start off and get into. In terms of services, I think anything in technology, if you're trying to find solutions for businesses with technology, and that's pretty broad, but you can offer services like that to American companies. I think, you could do fairly well.
So import, export, so you identify products that have a demand in the US, and then you're going to go to Asia to try to find a source, right? Try to find the manufacturer. You also mentioned services for companies. So I'm thinking about digital marketing, right? Handling the social network, video, etc. to US companies. And then you can have an offshore team that you can have in Vietnam, for instance, for IT, or in the Philippines for writers, because they are speaking very good English. That's the type of service you are considering. What about Amazon FBA and dropshipping? With your experience that you acquire overseas, and then you see a lot of different products in Vietnamese and Chinese factories, do you think there is any advantage that you are having now? It would be easier now to start such e-commerce business?
I was at a conference recently with people vet e-commerce businesses that sell online, the marketplace that buys and sells Amazon FBA, drop shipping businesses, etc. And then I talked to some person there, and he said Amazon FBA, the peak was 2019, 2020, something like that, is when they had the most demand and interest. Amazon businesses were selling very, very quickly at high multiples, but he says now it's died down quite a bit. So unfortunately, Amazon businesses are more competitive and they've decreased, not as popular as before. But having said that, in Vietnam compared to China, it's really hard to say. I think Vietnam has more handicrafts and smaller items, but the flip side is it's harder to find the manufacturers, right? And the factories. So whereas China, you can find on Alibaba, there's websites presence, you can call and you can ask for an English speaker, sales team, things like that. So it's very accommodating. Whereas in Vietnam, it's much more hurdles, it's more difficult. It's about 15 years behind in terms of infrastructure or professionalism or having a dedicated English sales team. And then Vietnam is just, I would say, in the last decade or so that's been exporting to overseas. So there's just still learning the ropes. So it's a little more challenging, I would say.
It's true that sourcing in China, basically you can easily find online catalogs, get direct point of contact with factories. You have usually English speaking staff over there. So it's very easy to get the proper information, to get quotations, etc. While in Vietnam, things are maybe 10 years behind. So obviously there are good factories and products that you can make in Vietnam, but it's going to be more challenging to get to know them and to get the right contact in manufacturers. Then we make a bunch of videos talking about Vietnam, why Vietnam is so good to live, why there are so many opportunities for foreigners to come to Vietnam. Now I would like in this video to highlight more the pros of living in the US versus Vietnam. Maybe your perspective has changed over the last 5 years, and maybe now you come back with a different perspective about the US and you can see more the advantages that are in the US and that are not in Vietnam. Can you list us some of them?
For the pros of living or moving to Vietnam, I'd say the nightlife is amazing, the street food, the experience, that's a big highlight. The dating life, of course, if you're a single male and you come to Vietnam, you have much more chances to meet someone, more opportunity to go out and have fun. So that's another advantage. Vietnam in general, the economy is trending upwards. So there's opportunities in terms of maybe job opportunities or business opportunities, collaborations. It's an exciting time to be in Vietnam. Lots of projects are moving down from China to Vietnam. And then the economy, like I mentioned, is pretty strong. So if you're into supply chain, logistics, sourcing like I am, I was fortunate to experience that over there. So I think if you want to have an exciting lifestyle where you're meeting people, you're going out, you're living cheaply, you're traveling the region, nonstop fun, that's the type of atmosphere you might want to look for in Vietnam. And that's where I found it for the last 4 to 5 years. But since I'm married now and I have a child, now I'm looking for the future, sending my child to schools. And then generally speaking, I mentioned America has kind of a gun problem, but aside from that, it's can be safer in terms of like laws, regulations, health. You know, Vietnam, Saigon in particular, is air pollution and traffic can be dangerous. There's more rules and regulations in America and Western countries. Things are a little bit more transparent with the law. If you're going to open a business, do banking or buy land, property or anything like that. So I guess, like I mentioned, there's pros and cons everywhere, and I'm at a different stage of life where now I have a family of my own, and then I'm looking forward to the future. I want to be in the largest market with the United States, still want to have that connection to Vietnam in terms of sourcing and business, and maybe going there ever so often. But at this stage of my life, I want to be in a more secure place and familiarity. And then, like I said, the whole plan wasn't to live my whole life in Vietnam, just maybe a few years, and I did that, and so I'm back. And so that was the original plan, the reason why I'm back in the United States.
Okay, yeah, it's true, Vin, that we make plenty of videos talking about why Vietnam is so good when you are young. Everything is new, it's so easy to go out, it's very good for dating, the nightlife is amazing. Cost-wise, you can access to plenty of benefits that you cannot have in the West. But when you get more mature, I would say you have the questions of raising a family, the education side of things, the healthcare, etc. And then obviously because Vietnam is emerging, so you have pollution, you have noise, you have traffic. Those things are also somehow downsides that have to be alighted. So I understand totally your points and the reflection that you had. I guess it's going to help foreigners who used to live in Asia for a couple of years and now considering probably going back to their homeland. I was very happy to have you to get some updates from your side, and maybe they're going to be upcoming videos about the new things that you are doing in the US and then your life over there.
Sure. It's been great. Thank you, Guillaume.
Thanks, Vin, again for your thoughts, and I see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Been down and I'ma get it right. Get on sight like